The purpose of this short video is to talk with you briefly about academic honesty and avoiding plagiarism. First, we need to begin with defining the act of plagiarism. Plagiarism is the act of taking credit for someone else's work without properly giving that person credit. In this example, I have directly copied and pasted from our university website. I have not provided any type of indication that these words are not my own. So this is an act of plagiarism. However, using that exact same example, if I were to provide quotation marks and a reference, then I would not be committing plagiarism because I have let you know that these are not my words and instead they belong to the University of West Georgia. So you may be saying to yourself at this point, I understand that it's not appropriate to copy and paste someone else's work and not give that person credit. But with that being said, we need to keep in mind that unintentional plagiarism is still plagiarism. So we have to be very careful that when we are using other people's work, we are very attentive to providing that person credit. So what are some other examples of academic dishonesty? Well, one of them is making up references that don't exist. Another is submitting work that you submitted in another course. Now, there are some exceptions to that. If, for instance, you're working on a project and in one class you do part of the project and in another class you do something different with the project or do something in addition, then faculty may be permitting that. So just if you have any questions, speak with your faculty member individually. Another example of academic dishonesty is basically having someone else do your work for you. So how can you avoid plagiarism? Well, one thing that you can do is to use quotation marks and provide citations whenever you are directly quoting someone else's work. We've already talked about that. But another thing you can do is to paraphrase what someone said. Now, that doesn't mean changing two small words and then trying to pretend like you paraphrased it. If you can't really change the wording that much, then just use a quotation marks. But paraphrasing, even when you do this, you have to provide a citation to the original author. And don't assume that your peers are practicing good academic ethics. The reality of it is that we have situations in which people assume their peers are conducting themselves ethically and appropriately, and that's not necessarily the case. And we really don't want any of you guys to suffer if your peer is not conducting him or herself appropriately. So because of that, and because sometimes we just mess up and don't realize that we accidentally forgot to quote someone, it's a good idea to use Turnitin. And we have a free campus license to turn it in. Now, you have to have a course, per se, in which you can submit papers so that you can run a report and get a similarity index. And if your professor has not created a course for you to use, then if you just ask him or her to do so, they'd be happy to do that. That's not a problem. The big question that you're probably asking then is, what happens if I plagiarize? Well, first and foremost, your professor is required to report your actions to the Vice President of Academic Affairs. We don't have any choice in that matter, and you will have a record with the university. You may very well fail the assignment, or you may fail the class, and you may even very well be suspended from your program of study. We do have some resources on campus to help you learn more about plagiarism. So there is the resource that I used earlier in this presentation to provide you with the definition of plagiarism, but then there's also the Academic Honor Code, and here's the two web links to those resources. We also have the University Writing Center, and this is an excellent resource. They can not only help you avoid plagiarism and learn how to properly cite, but they can also help you with learning proper grammatical rules and APA citation style. So I strongly encourage you to use the Writing Center. They are here to help students, and of course they are free of charge. Before you become particularly paranoid and fearful that we're trying to do our very best to eject you from the program, know that we're not out to get you, and we really want for you to succeed. And because of that, we have to make sure that we're doing the best that we can to teach you the appropriate and professional ways to conduct yourself in writing. Even so, gross negligence and intentional plagiarism, we absolutely have to address these. So if you ever have any questions about whether or not you're plagiarizing something, or if you are not sure how to cite something, clearly you can use the Writing Center, but your faculty are also here to help you. Intentional plagiarism, though, and gross negligence, just don't do it. Because if the case is that it's gross negligence or intentional plagiarism, we really have no alternative but to pursue pretty harsh consequences.